You're listening to That's Pretty Dark,
the podcast where we talk about all of the entertainment that scared us as children
and still haunts us as adults. So grab your flashlight and join us as we take a frightfully nostalgic look over our shoulders
and under our beds
and in our closets.
And together we'll realize, whoa, that's pretty dark.
That's pretty dark.
I think this is the first time we've recorded where I've had my hair up and you've had your hair down.
Yeah, we are opposite today.
Today's opposite
I do
day.
have, look at these luscious locks I'm
I know. It's also one of the first times in our entire friendship that my hair's been longer than yours.
That's also true.
Because it definitely
It's
is
been true
now.
for a little while.
Yeah.
I guess it's been true since I cut my hair 2 years ago.
Probably,
During
yeah.
COVID,
Because
yeah.
that's when I started growing mine.
Yeah. You know, also is known to have long hair.
Hey, who's also known to have long hair?
Vampires.
No way.
Yeah. Supposedly.
Is it because they live so long?
Well, I mean, sure. Just kind of, grab bag of theories. Just reach in, take out one,
And that's why.
and yeah, it has a different root in history.
You're going to tell us all about that.
I'll tell you all about it.
I can't
Before we
wait.
get too far, my name's Christian,
My name is Kaylin.
and you're listening to That's Pretty Dark. And look what I'm drinking out of my coffee. See this?
Oh, I see the
It's
face.
a face. Do you know whose face it is?
Is it Dracula?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bela Lugosi.
At first I couldn't tell.
It's it's good for a change. Somebody be drinking out of him than him drinking out of
Oh, someone
other
else.
people.
Nice.
Man, the vampire puns are gonna keep just.
I feel like
Coming.
vampire puns are really strong.
Yeah.
There are a lot of them to be made.
They're strong, like vampires.
I think that there were like at least 2 of the Halloweens that I had in college. All I did was wear vampire fangs to class.
It's perfect though. It's
I
good.
would just wear vampire fangs to class, and then people were like, "You didn't dress up. You love Halloween." And then I would just like smile, and they'd be like, "Oh."
Oh, it's like you didn't wear green on St. Patrick's Day, and you like
Right.
show them your socks or something. You're like, haha, joke's on you.
Gotcha.
You pinch me, I get to punch you in the face.
Man,
Is that
I
how it
wish I wish I could still dress up for Halloween.
You totally can.
I do sometimes at work, but it's not the same. In college, everybody had like a spirit about it.
The spirit
People
of Halloween,
cared.
right?
Mhm.
You have those nasty plastic tasting
Fangs.
things that you wear. Yeah.
That was it.
And they didn't fit right.
Never.
But
Oh,
your
never.
mouth was so small, I think that it had to fit just perfectly.
In my mouth?
Yeah.
No.
Because they were always so small.
Yeah, they were small, but they still didn't fit me right.
Interesting. Well, moving on from that point, why are we talking about vampires
And
and
teeth.
vampire fangs today?
Tell us.
Because we're covering Are You Afraid of the Dark? Season 1, Episode 8, The Tale of the Nightly Neighbors.
Nightly.
It's gonna get
Neighbors.
spooky, y'all.
Dun dun dun.
And
Is it episode 8? I get so confused on the episode
it's
counts.
8. You tried to say the last one was 8, but it was 7.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Paramount Plus. It's not my fault.
Sure. Okay. But it has been like a year since we've actually recorded a Are You Afraid of the Dark episode.
And we're caught up. And
And
here
now
we
we're
are.
finally caught up and we're starting over. And, it's also probably worth saying that we're going to do slightly different structure than we used to when we were still kind of figuring things out and how to do it.
I like to try new things
We'll
sometimes.
see how it works. This is a fresh start. We got some fresh blood. Ooh, it's going to be good. So this episode released on October 3rd, 1992.
My first Halloween. Baby's first Halloween.
That's so cute. This is the IMDb summary. Some new neighbors move into a neighborhood.
Is that where it ends?
That's where it starts.
Can that just be it?
They are originally from Eastern Europe, wear black, collect blood, and are only active at night.
Oh, that's it?
That's it.
Oh, man. Okay. Well,
Here's my summary.
thank you.
A girl and her brother find their new neighbors a little bit strange. So strange, in fact, that they dare sneak into their house to find proof that these people are vampires.
Mm.
They adhere to some conventional vampire lore for protection, going so far as planning to murder these good suburban folk in their sleep. And it's only after these two Phoebes realize that their fears are unfounded that we learn just how dead wrong they really are.
Well done.
Thanks.
That really sums it up.
Mm-hmm.
What a
I think so.
summary.
I think we're done here. Can we just...
Yeah, that's
move-
the
yeah.
episode.
That was the episode. That's pretty much what happened.
Mm-hmm.
This episode was written by Chloe Brown, a.k.a. DJ McHale.
McHale.
Exactly. It was directed by Jacques Payet, and this guy did a bunch of Cirque du Soleil documentaries.
I love Cirque du Soleil.
Mm-hmm.
It's so underrated.
And he
love
also
it.
did a bunch of Celine Dion music videos.
This is a Canadian man.
It certainly is. But it's also worth mentioning that he directed a few of the campfire sequences in season 2 of Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Nice.
So he comes back to do some of those.
What a Canadian guy. Robin Scherbatsky would be proud.
So this episode starts really quickly. It doesn't really stop the whole time
that's
until
the
it comes to
whole
a
vibe.
screeching halt
Right.
out of nowhere. The structure is different. It's unique for the show at this point. It's fun, fluid, and it feels a lot more to me like you're listening to someone tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mostly because of this really kind of great montage sequence kind of toward the beginning of the episode where Betty Ann, who is telling the story, she narrates over this passing of time. And we jump back to the Midnight Society a few more times than is typical.
Than normal. I noticed that.
So like I said, Betty Ann is telling this story this evening. And if we remember, she's known for telling of supernatural things trying to break into our world or trying to drag us into their own.
That's right.
So this checks out perfectly for this episode because we're talking about vampires.
She originated Zebo.
Yes.
She's this monstrous sort of fear that she seems to have.
And most vampire stories are about creatures that try to fit into our world in disguise because they don't belong here.
Arguably the scariest part of vampire lore in general is that they're living among us.
Yeah, they're just here, feeding off of us, and we have no idea for the most part. So when it gets started, Kristen is asking the question, why do we always tell stories at night? If they're scary, she says, they should be just as scary during the day, right? To which Gary, of course, says, thank you, Gary. He says, no way. Things are always scarier at night. And so they're all presenting theories and it goes back and forth, but this sets things up perfectly for Betty Ann.
I knew that it would be very important to you that scary stories are told at night. If you guys don't know this about Christian, he's very particular about not only the time of day that he'll watch or experience certain things, but the seasons. He has certain shows or albums that he'll listen to, like for different seasons. If I try to get him to listen to something or watch something, experience something out of order, he gets very frazzled. He does not like it.
It's true. It's true.
I knew that you would be really grateful.
I did
Gary.
appreciate the commentary. Yeah. I thought it was nice. There's just, there's a time for all things.
There is.
And ghost stories and scary stories and vampires, they belong with the evening time. They belong at night. In the night. In the dark.
Oh, yeah. Haunting of Hill House.
Mm-hmm. So Betty Ann responds.
Things are scarier at night, especially in my story. You can be scared during the day, but don't bother, because the real terror never begins until night falls.
I also think this is the first time the storytelling doesn't begin with narration. You know how usually they'll get things started, we see the title.
It's like a prologue.
Yeah, it's this introduction to what's happening. We don't get that. We jump right into the scene.
This is the story.
But I think they did that because they have this sort of prolonged montage sequence that I'm going to reference a whole lot in this episode. And she's narrating the whole time they do this montage. So I think they exchanged one for the other because they didn't want to throw off the balance of the narration, and the watching the episode play out. Because maybe it would be too distracting from
I get it. I get
story.
that.
Maybe it would take away from it.
It's interesting to me how people choose to tell stories because I wrestle with that in my head too. Even when it comes down to like doing notes for the show, it's like if you choose a style, you almost have to stick with it.
Yeah, you find your structure.
I'm sure they feel that way about the show too. So I appreciate any time if you deviate because you feel like that's a better way to tell the story. I get it. Totally.
And there aren't that many of insults. Some sweet burns.
Oh, I have the first two written down as well.
Yeah. And I'm not sure where they'll fit in. So once again, I'll just give you a list of them. I've got, you're a zero. Yeah. You'll always be a zero.
That's a pretty good one.
I know. It's pretty harsh, actually.
You amount to nothing.
I know. Oh, my God. And then DJ McHale's favorite, Toad. He uses like every episode.
And she almost calls him a zero and a toad in the same breath.
I know.
Like she's very quick to say this.
It's very, very quick. She calls him a dip.
Oh, yeah. Dip.
I don't know if it's like dipstick or dipshit.
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think they all come from the same place.
You dip. That was very interesting. She calls herself a jerk. It's self-inflicted, but still, it's an insult.
True.
And then classic loser at the end.
Gotta have a classic loser.
You're a loser. A big loser.
Loser,
Right.
loser, double
Well, that's
loser.
your insult breakdown.
Hey, thanks for the insult breakdown.
This is the content you're here for.
It
I know you
is.
love it.
Especially these Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes. So 90s.
So 90s.
Glorious 90s. These kids' names on this show.
Yeah.
Why are they the way that they are? Because they are basically insults in and of themselves.
Emma's a fine name.
Emma's fine. But the main kid, the little boy,
Day-Day?
his name is Day-Day.
Yeah. I kind of was thinking that too. I mean, sorry.
That's fine if you're a toddler.
I'm sorry if your name is Day-Day out there,
Oh,
first of all.
sure. If you're listening to this, your name is Day-Day, please write in and
Help us understand why your parents named you that.
or if it's a nickname, that's also fine. But what is it a nickname for? Like
David?
Dave, Davy, Day-Day when you're 3,
I agree.
not when you're 13.
I mean, maybe his name is like Day-Day Montego Toll. And they're like Day-Day short for Day-Day Montego.
I don't buy it.
Dadarius.
I don't buy that either.
Mm.
You call him Dairy.
Dairy.
You call him Dairy.
I don't know. But the last name is Toll. Like they're taking a toll.
True.
Poor family. This poor family.
We've had some very odd names on the show.
Right. So let's jump into the deep end here.
Let's go.
The first scene, it's nighttime, naturally. Day-Day is watching a scary movie on the television. Emma comes in and scares him, gives him a hard time, and they literally trash the living room with his popcorn. I mean, it goes everywhere.
Yeah.
He jumps and throws it around, and then she dumps what's left of it on his head.
Yeah.
I mean,
Ugh.
chaos.
Is this me being 30? But like that frustrates me.
I just want to clean that up like immediately.
Me too. I want to clean up right now because it's going to bother me. Also, there was just a lot of popcorn in the bowl. Like she used it and then she used it again. There was just
Right.
so much.
Yeah, they kept refilling that bowl.
To see the floor after they were done with all of the takes.
That'd be a really funny scene in like a
Yeah.
scary movie, spoof movie. Like every time the bowl is spilled, there's more popcorn in it. Like where does it keep coming from?
The infinite popcorn bowl.
That'd be really
of
funny.
A jump
actually.
scare.
That'd be great. So she's, giving him a hard time for watching TV all day. She says that you'll never catch her sitting in front of the TV because there's a ton going on in the world and she's not going to miss any of it. So instead of watching TV, she's going to go to the window and watch The Neighbors. Like that's so much better.
So much better. She's such a worldly, 14-year-old.
Like she exchanges human TV for cat TV, basically.
For sure. Phoebe TV. Phoebe loves to look out the
Phoebe
window.
TV. No, that's Atlas too. All day. He's at the window all day looking out. And like you said, these two characters are named Emma and Day-Day. Emma is played by Susanna Shabib. She plays a high school girl in Billy Madison, as well as 2 episodes of Ready or Not, which is that show starring Laura Bertram from Lonely Ghost.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We talked
She's in
about
that show. Day-Day is played by Noah Godfrey, and he voices Victor from Babar, which is that animated elephant show.
Don't know it.
Yeah, it's really strange. The whole universe is just elephant people. He also voices the character Scabs in the animated series Tales from the Crypt Keeper, which is the animated component of Tales from the Crypt
Nice.
that I forgot existed.
Me too.
And I feel like we should cover eventually.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Super cool.
This kid looks so familiar to me, I will say. I don't know if he looks like another actor.
He has a
But
distinct face.
I looked him up too because I was like, he looks like somebody that I knew or...
Yeah, I feel like there are people that have his look.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've known kids actually in my real life that look like him.
Yeah, that
Which
may
is
be what
strange.
it is for me.
But what is Day-Day watching on the TV? Do you know the movie?
No, and I wanted you to tell me. I almost looked it up and I was like,
Yeah.
I'll wait.
Well, I know it because I've seen it. I watched it just last year for Halloween. It is the original The Night of the Living Dead from 1968.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting. So The Night of the Living Dead. Vampires are undead beings, and it's nighttime, they live in the nighttime, and it's all like whatever. And yes, it's zombies, not vampires, but if you look at the history, vampires are just zombies.
They're just pretty zombies.
Well, they're not really. Only modern vampires are attractive. So
Okay.
originally,
We're all learning something.
I'm going to get into some vampire lore, but, not all of it. But vampires are just zombies that only drink blood. Zombies eat flesh.
Okay.
They're 2 parts of the same kind of creature,
Mhm.
the same thing. And original vampires looked a hell of a lot like zombies because they're just literally walking corpses that drink blood.
And
That's
you might touch on this, but it's connecting some dots in my brain. Does that, like drinking the blood of a virgin or like putting the blood of a virgin on yourself to stay youthful and all this stuff, does that also tie into vampire lore? Is that what makes the vampires attractive?
No.
And it doesn't have that element with a zombie?
That's not connected to vampire lore whatsoever.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, there are people, yeah, that is in history. I'm not going to get to that element of blood.
Like, what's her name? Madam,
yeah.
in New Orleans?
Oh, yeah, no, she did do some of that stuff. That's a different type of blood lore. That's just blood lore.
Okay.
That's mysticism
not vampire lore.
and magic surrounding blood magic. That has nothing to do with vampires.
Wow, I would have thought that there would be at least some overlap there.
There's overlap in fiction, and there's overlap in people who make really incorrect assumptions about historical figures who have bathed in the blood of virgins. Like that queen, the woman in the castle.
That's yes.
I forget her name.
Me too. I'm thinking
at the moment.
There was a last podcast episode that talked a lot about it.
Yeah, it's in lore too. Lore talks about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she would do that. And there was a lot of talk that maybe she was this vampire or things like that.
I'm not the first to make to connect these dots.
No, you're not the first to connect these dots,
accurate.
but it doesn't hold up from an authentic historical folklore standpoint.
Okay.
That's just blood magic across the board.
Okay.
So, the significance of the Night of the Living Dead is that, so every zombie film, it's a big metaphor. It's a big allegory for something. It represents something. And that is the motivation and the influence behind the film. The Night of the Living Dead is a metaphor for the oppressed racial minorities of America. This is super important that this movie's in this episode because the vampire of pop culture has often been a metaphor for the other.
Yes.
Or a racial minority infiltrating a community or country belonging to a racial majority.
Mm-hmm.
This was the inspiration for many of the original vampire stories,
wow,
including the novel Dracula by Bram Stoker.
Yeah, okay.
So the vampire, and I'm going to get into some real sticky vines here.
Understandable.
And I'm not necessarily saying, this is not my opinion. I'm not making a statement.
I'm here for it. Professor Mott and his lesson.
That's it. This is not a That's Pretty Dark statement. This is not commentary that we are standing by. This is just history, fiction, folklore.
We don't believe in othering people.
No, absolutely not. These are dots being connected.
And it has always led to bad things, and it always will.
Yes. So, the vampire is a parasite in human form.
Mm-hmm.
Parasites attach themselves to a host and feed off the host, killing it slowly over time until all of its resources are depleted.
Parasites freak me the hell out.
Yeah, parasites are freaky.
I don't like them.
Many people have also thought of immigrants as parasites.
Mm-hmm.
And voila, the vampire has very often, if not most often, been depicted as an immigrant.
True.
How this metaphor exists is that the immigrant slips in among us unnoticed and begins taking things that belong to us. That's the general idea of people who don't enjoy immigrants moving into their country.
Of ignorant people.
Yeah.
With a scarcity mindset.
Right, exactly. So all this connects to this episode because we find out that the Bronze, who is the family moving in across the street, they're from Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And the next day scene that we get to, I'm kind of going to jump around in this episode a whole lot. But the next day, the kids go over and there are boxes being delivered to the house.
What's in the box?
There are two of them. They're huge. And the guy who is delivering them, that I'll get to in a minute, he says they are from Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So, Ukraine.
Man.
It has a long history of poverty and struggle.
And we're right in the middle of some really awful...
back in the middle of it. So here's something very interesting. Ukraine declared its independence from the USSR in August 1991. Mm-hmm. When the Soviet Union fell on Christmas Day in 1991, Ukraine was free. And it's really interesting that within a year of this episode coming out, Ukraine was free from, the Soviet Union.
Yeah, that is...
And
wow.
Within a year of us starting this podcast, Russia goes back to war with Ukraine to take control and bring it back into the Soviet Union.
Yep.
Like, this is a weird, 30-year gap that's being closed off.
Repeating.
The 30-year cycle is a real thing. Mm-hmm. that we haven't really touched on, but we should get to
we
it
should,
at some point.
yeah.
What if they're KGB agents who had to bolt when the Soviet Union crumbled? Or gypsies searching for a new home?
So
Don't get real.
when the Soviet Union fell and Ukraine was free, it was broken and its economy was a wreck. They had to transition to a market economy, which led to an 8-year recession for them. So their whole like infrastructure and economy was just awful for a very long time.
Well, that's what happens when you are taken advantage of by neighboring countries.
You basically exist as a war-torn country for like
Yeah.
most of your existence. Yeah. So it wasn't uncommon for many Ukrainian citizens to immigrate to new countries in search of better lives.
Mhm.
So this makes a lot of sense as to why the Bronze claim to be working at night with paramedics, studying American emergency healthcare services so that they can learn the techniques and take the knowledge back to their own country.
Mhm.
Because at the time, Ukraine needed all the help it could get.
Yep.
And 30 years later, it still does.
Mhm. Does once again.
So it's timely
Man.
and crazy relevant.
Yeah. I'm just like imagining what it was like for this to come out in 1992. Hearing that someone was from the Ukraine would immediately probably
It would mean
like,
something.
In that time, you knew,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Well, one of the kids in my class, his parents were missionaries, and they would go to Ukraine to do mission work, specifically because it needed so much help. And it was cool because they actually helped us establish pen pals
Yeah.
with Ukrainian children.
That's so cool.
And it didn't last very long. I don't really know what happened. They didn't keep it up, but
Pen pals is such like a 90s concept, is it not?
Isn't it?
80s and 90s. I had
It
pen
is.
pals of
It
my
is.
parents. It was really my parents' friends' kids. I had pen pals in the Philippines
wow.
because of similar things, like, you know, people going on mission trips and stuff and
Yeah.
bringing back like contact information for these kids that were our age in the Philippines. We wrote to them for years, and then they found us on Facebook like
I tried to
within
do
the
that.
past couple years.
Oh, I tried to do that. I couldn't find her. And I think about her sometimes and like, I hope she's doing okay, you know?
Man,
I don't know how to
pen
find her. I don't know anything
the
about
idea
her.
of pen pals, I love it so much. It's so much like
I know.
it's that romantic letter writing sort of
Yeah.
thing.
It's romantic in the way that you idealize something.
The romantic notion of writing, you know, snail
Right.
mail to people that you are getting to know through mail
Mm-hmm.
and learning about each other.
Yeah.
It's nice.
It's nice. But yeah, so that, I mean, Ukraine was a very culturally relevant thing at the time. So this would have meant something to kids.
Right.
And anybody watching it at the time. So now that they've moved to the window and they're watching the bronze move in
Yes,
across the
yes.
street,
Mhm.
these questions arise. You know, why are they moving in at night? And why are they dressed in all black?
Mhm.
So they're immediately judging them.
And why do they turn in unison, in sync,
Right.
and all look at me through the
Right.
window?
They're standing there looking at him, and they all turn back and look because they know they're being talked
Vomit.
about.
Something about that, I think I've said
It's
it on
very
the show
spooky.
before, but I don't like the idea that I'm going to look out the window, look out the blinds, and see something or someone looking back. Mm-mm.
I know, it's honestly very scary. But that plays into the vampire lore that vampires are these kind of psychic creatures that have this sort of weird
Sixth sense.
psychic
Yeah.
control.
They can
over
feel you
Right.
in your presence. They're very similar to the goblin lore that we'll bring up
Oh, yeah.
when we talk about Labyrinth.
That you've been researching.
I have been
For
all
Labyrinth.
over it.
Yeah. It is very similar in ways. But all these old supernatural creatures, they're all very similar. Some of them have the same origin. Goblins and fairies are the same thing. Vampires and zombies and werewolves are the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
You're angering all of the Twilight folk by saying that,
Man.
but I'm excited to hear how and why.
screw Twilight folk.
Hey, we were Twilight folk.
Yeah, I was for a while. Whatever. Yeah, but Emma says it,
Whoever they are, they don't fit this boring neighborhood.
and Day Day says,
I think I'm going to avoid our new neighbors.
so they're immediately otherizing them,
Right?
putting them in a box that's outside,
Mhm.
away from them.
Take it up, take it out. In the words of Daryl Philbin.
So many people have this kind of mentality that people who are different from you are strange and odd and deserve to be avoided.
Ostracized.
Ostracized, exactly.
Hmm.
I mean, I've moved in at night. I wear black.
Yeah, I've moved in. Oh, same.
I spend a
Same.
lot of my
I've-
time in my house. I'm sure my neighbors
I've
just
been
think
this
I'm a
person.
vampire. I mean,
And my
whatever.
neighbors probably are a little bit, scared of me. So,
Probably. As they should be.
right?
I would know. So the Bronze, Lex Braun, the little boy,
Hmm.
is played by Johnny Marina. And he played a character in a movie called Chasing Holden starring Rachel Blanchard, who is Kristen.
Yeah.
Mrs. Braun is played by Francois Robertson, who I think established my taste in women.
I was going to say that. It's in my literal notes.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, you really liked her as a kid, didn't
absolute
you?
perfection, if you ask me. Oh my God. I don't want to be gross about it, but she's fine.
I'm looking up her name. She reminds me
Yeah.
of another French actress.
I don't know. I don't even know if she's French.
Yvonne
I
Sicot.
think she was actually born in England, in London.
This French actress that I'm talking about apparently was also born in Italy, but she's French in all the roles that I've seen her in, and most of them.
Right.
And she plays like a supermodel in Passport to Paris, and she has this exact same aesthetic and like
this kind of persona.
vibe, but she's not a vampire.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So Francois, she played the White House Chief of Staff in Supergirl, and she's appeared in many other shows such as Sliders, Step by Step, Battlestar Galactica, and Riverdale.
man, I miss Step by Step.
though. And Sliders.
How do we both go to Step by Step?
I miss Sliders. That was a cool show.
I don't think I've seen Sliders.
Very science fiction heavy.
Okay.
Mr. Braun is played by Carl Alaki, and he's got a smattering of credits, a couple crossovers with Francois Robertson, and he comes back to play the werewolf in The Tale of the Full Moon.
Ooh, so he has played a vampire and a werewolf.
He sure
on
has.
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Sure has.
Legend.
That's the
Legend
basis of
status.
my belief that they're the same thing, because he played both. All right, so now we're going to get into something that I think you're really going to appreciate because of the main cultural reference, but
Okay.
that's a little tease. I'm going to get there in a second.
Okay, I'm ready.
This is what I love most about this episode and what I love most about the suburbs. So in the suburbs, people live separate lives, but they're just close enough that you can watch them go about their business on a regular basis, literally from the comfort and relative safety of your own home.
Very relative.
Very relative. You can make up any story you want about them, and if you spend enough time doing it, like I have in my own home, living in the suburbs,
Yeah, for good reason.
you can, and often do, begin to make up whole entire narratives about the people around you and the intricacies of their existence.
Like Rear Window and Disturbia? Is that
Exactly.
where you're going?
Oh, we're getting to Disturbia.
Okay.
We're getting to Disturbia.
I freaking love Disturbia.
I know. I have running narratives about certain neighbors of mine. One of them,
I wonder if they're listening.
if they do, that's news to me. One of them is a monster in human skin,
Okay.
and another one of them is a serial killer who stages her victims to appear like suicides. Because,
Well, yeah.
yes, there have been a ton of really strange and similar suicides on my street
Yep.
in just the last few years.
Yep. One of which
Yep.
I was present for.
Well, I mean, we weren't like in the
we
room.
weren't like present in the
with the
room,
guy,
but I was there at your house the night that it happened, and we heard it.
We heard the build up, but yeah. We'll have a whole episode one day where we do stuff.
Honestly,
talk about
we
stuff
should.
like that. But this sort of thing is not exclusive to entertainment in the 90s, but it was represented a hell of a lot at that time. Goosebumps does the same thing. Most of those stories take place in the suburbs, featuring suburban characters with some pretty dark secrets. Because there's more than just a power grid and sewage systems and property line disputes connecting you to your neighbors in the suburbs. There's also the mystery of being able to see the same people doing the same thing every day or every week and never really knowing what goes on inside their home. And because we don't know this, we are much more prone to making up our own stories in our own heads. Some real life influences of this trope in fiction include serial killer heavy hitters such as John Wayne Gacy, who was
I
found
hope we could feel that sigh.
with 29 young men, practically children, they were found buried on his
Buried
property
under his
in
house.
1978.
The John Wayne Gacy tapes just came out on Netflix.
Yeah,
If
I
you're
watched it.
unfamiliar with it
It's
somehow.
incredible.
Yeah.
It tells you everything. I learned things I didn't know about him, and
Me
I've
too.
heard
Me
a lot
too.
about Gacy.
hmm
But 26 of these 29 young men on his property were buried in the crawl space under his house.
Yep.
It's mysteries and horrors like this in reality that always eventually influence the mysteries and horrors of fiction. And this happened in late 70s.
Yep.
So it influenced the 80s up into the 90s. That same dark element in real life bleeding into fiction.
Of who are your neighbors, really?
Right.
hmm
So it's so great that it found its way to children's entertainment in the 90s.
And there's the interviews on the local news stations that you see plastered on after something like this. Like,
oh my God,
he
right.
seemed to be so nice. Like, I
Such a
never
normal
suspected
guy.
anything.
I love the ones that are just like, no, he was weird.
I
We
knew
avoided
it.
him. Yeah, he was totally strange. So this is the entire premise of the 1989 Tom Hanks film, The Burbs.
There we go.
Which is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Man.
I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I think I've like turned it on and seen it on TV.
Yeah. It's one of those like
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon TV.
Yeah, that
kind
would
of
just be
classics.
playing on some
Right. We're going to
station.
cover this on the podcast one day, for sure.
I want to.
Because we're not going to just do children's entertainment. We're going to do family-friendly entertainment too,
Sure.
which is how we're going to do a bunch of Spielberg stuff and those classic.
We got to draw these lines.
Got to. The ones that, Goonies wasn't a kid's movie. Come on. But in The Burbs, he spends his week off from work on a staycation at home, and he and the other neighborhood dads become obsessed with their creepy new neighbors. It's paranoia meets mob mentality,
Yeah.
and it's all to save their cul-de-sac from the clutches of evil. This is just one of my favorite horror tropes of all time, and I think this is why I was always so drawn to shows like Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps, because I like that feeling of being able to snuggle myself away in my own home and watch movies and eat junk food, because I liked believing that it was dangerous out there
Yeah.
in the night,
Me too.
in the dark. I don't know why, but I just love that safe,
Me too.
creepy feeling of
Me too.
I'm inside, I'm locked in, I'm secure.
I'm okay.
Because it can't get in if I don't invite it in.
Oh.
So in this same vein, pun intended,
Oh my God.
it's a little bit of vampire
that was
humor
too
for
easy.
you.
God, that was too easy.
Sneaking into the neighbor's house or basement to look for clues or proof, this trope can happen forever and will never get old. Ever. It's always thrilling. It's always effective.
Because you could get caught.
You can get caught. The suspense is undying, like a vampire.
Oh my God.
It has always been happening in books and movies and TV shows for as long as they've been around, and it always will. In The Burbs, they do the same thing. They sneak into the house multiple times looking for proof. In the Dracula novel, there's a scene where, there are multiple scenes where they're breaking into his houses. He has multiple houses in London that they break into looking for proof.
Wow.
There's one scene where they literally hire a locksmith to let them into his rental property
Oh my God.
just to get inside,
To see
just to see what's there.
if there's coffins
It's crazy. Boxes of earth.
and that.
But yes, kind of the same thing. So here we go. I think one of the best words to describe this trope, this feeling, is the slang word disturbia.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know how much you know about this as a concept or as a word. I know you know the song, Rihanna's
I was singing
Disturbia.
the song in my head.
I know that you know Shia LaBeouf
I do.
and his film,
I
Disturbia,
do.
one of the greatest films of 2008?
Oh no, it was earlier than that, wasn't it?
2006?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
It came out the
was-
same year as the first Transformers.
I'm gonna look it up.
But while you look that up, in Disturbia, the film, he spies on his neighbors.
2007. I thought so.
2007,
I was in
okay.
high school, but yeah, I was in love with Shia LaBeouf after this movie.
I wanted to be him. In this movie, he spies on his neighbors until he becomes convinced that one of them is a serial killer. There ends up being a lot of breaking into said neighbor's house to find proof
Yep.
that he is still collecting victims.
Yep.
So
And it's that suspense in that movie is so well done.
it is painful.
And it happens in it's not just one time that they do it. It's like
Right.
3-4 scenes in that film, sequences where this is happening.
It's done
And
so
it's,
well.
It's just done really well. Like if you're writing off that movie or you think it was just a, campy early 2000s horror.
It's
it is.
It's one of the best movies made in the modern time.
It is so well done. I rewatch it like once a year, straight up.
It's so good. I was almost going to watch it this
It doesn't
week.
help my anxiety and paranoia, but it is really well done.
We should watch it. We've never watched it together.
We haven't. You're right. I would love to.
We should watch it.
I've purchased it. I purchased it on Prime. I have a DVD.
That was the best summer of my life, that summer it came out.
Honestly, me too. One of them,
It
anyway.
was. It holds up. It lives in my memory.
Yeah, I saw it in the theater. I remember going to see it in the theater.
Me too. Me and my friend Josh. You know Josh.
I know Josh. Josh is my
Yeah.
friend too.
We went to see that and Transformers that same summer. We went to the movies
That's
a
a
lot.
good
That's
summer.
because that was
Oh.
the summer I drove.
Wait. But which theater were you going to?
The one up where you live now. That's closed.
We were probably there at the same time, perhaps
Mm-hmm.
watching the same movie at the same time. Because me, Thomas is listening to this. Hey, Thomas.
What up, Thomas?
Thomas always listens.
How's the weather up there?
Hey, how's the weather? My best friend
He's a
Thomas is a
meteorologist.
meteorologist. But me and Thomas and his brother who was dating, like we spent the entire summer, that summer and the next summer at that theater.
I don't know if we were there at the same time because I knew Thomas and his brother, so I don't think
You may have known if you'd seen them.
if we'd seen them, I'd been like,
Right.
"What's up, Thomas?"
That's true. You guys, we knew all the same people, and we didn't meet each other until we were out of college. It's super strange.
Totally. So, where did the term disturbia come from? You may ask. Do you know? Any idea?
I mean, disturbing.
Right.
Disturb and suburbia.
There you go. Exactly.
Okay.
So the term was coined in a book called The Split Level Trap.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. This is the description of this book I found on dictionary.com. A 1960 psychological study of a New Jersey suburb, the Split Level Trap, used disturbia to characterize suburban living as a hotbed of mental illness.
Yeah.
The book describes an increased prevalence of heart attacks and ulcers, which the authors attributed to the stresses of living in the suburbs. The split-level trap and the term it introduced were occasionally referenced in newspapers and other psychology texts in the late 1960s to 1970s.
Nice. Yeah, that's great.
And here's the definition given that you just said. A blend of the words disturbing or disturbed and suburbia, disturbia, is used to convey a perceived sense of distress about modern life, especially middle-class consumerism in American suburbs.
Yeah, because we're all dying under capitalism.
Yep.
And there's no sustainable way to live for the average person.
Right.
And the pressure of that, even if you're unaware of it, even if you don't know exactly why, the pressure of that is killing you.
Right.
And if you live in the suburbs, you're playing the game. Like we have, I mean, you don't have a choice but to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's what they call that, like domestic bliss.
Yeah, because it's not.
You get married, you buy you a house in the suburbs.
White picket fence, 2.5 kids.
You have kids, you have a lawn, you have to mow every freaking week.
Yeah.
Your commute to work is twice as long.
The rat race.
It's just tough. There's the upkeep, there's homeowners associations, it's expensive. We're kind of just talking in circles about the suburbs, but this is why I think a lot of these elements in the 90s were depicted as suburban, existences, because kids lived in the suburbs, because people moved to the suburbs to have families.
Man, there's a term for it. I took this really awesome human geography class in college.
Yeah.
And there's a term for that when you kind of migrate out of the city into the suburbs.
I want to know that term.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to look it up because it was fascinating. Like we did a whole chapter or whatever on this movement. And of course, only if you're middle class, only if you're affluent enough to get out to the suburbs do you make it there.
Right.
And at first it feels great, but then all of the tax, like it's going to be taxing because like you said, you have to get back into the city to work and
property taxes.
Taxing literally. Okay, let me see.
It's rough. But I think this word, there may be better words that exist that I don't know. If you know, listener, let us know if you've heard something that describes this or explains it better. Maybe one hasn't been coined quite yet, but I think disturbia is a perfect, that's pretty dark term for us to use over and over to describe this sort of sense of horror in the suburbs, this feeling of being close, but not too close, but not far enough away from danger. I don't know. It's just really interesting.
I can't get the right search term,
Yeah.
I mean, all it's coming up with is suburbanization, but I know that's not it.
Right. We'll find it.
If I had my glossary from my human geography textbook, I would have it.
If I had my glossary.
I push my glasses up.
Ooh. I'll push mine up for you.
Thank you. I don't have any. Can't find it, but
okay.
There's the hinterland, this whole area that's served by one city. And then you have the suburbs that is a ring on the outside of the inner city. Mm-hmm. And in that time period, 60s and 70s, 50s, really, I guess, the Wonder Years does a really good job of depicting this. We don't really get into the paranoia with the neighbors because at that point, people still liked their neighbors. This was early 80s.
Yeah,
at least the people making the Wonder Years in the early 80s remember growing up in the 60s and liking their neighbors.
Right.
But it does paint that picture of this is all perfect and great, but then, the dad comes home and he wants to kill everyone every night because he's angry and his, at his job, and the wife can't keep up,
the thing about it is
the pressures of that lifestyle.
That's one of the real life examples. I can't think of the right word, but real life things about this suburban life is that it's all about appearances.
Sure,
it's about having the most perfectly manicured lawn, the cleanest house, the most sparkling windows. Mm-hmm. How many window cleaning commercials did we have in the 90s? I mean, come on.
Yeah, you had to have this manicured lifestyle that you presented.
It's a manicured lifestyle.
You serve it up to other people and you say this. It's just like social media. Social media is probably the modern version of that.
Oh, totally.
The whole idea of keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with your neighbors, that lifestyle isn't good for anybody's mental health.
No.
And it is such a departure, I will also say, from the way that people think, maybe psychologists or scientists or whatever, think that we are supposed to live in communities, or the way that we first evolved to live in communities.
Yeah.
It was not supposed to be this way. It was a lot more communal. It was a lot more take what you need, leave what you don't.
Hey, that's what Ed Gein did.
And people try.
He took what he needed from his neighbors and he put back what he didn't want anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's true.
Speaking of suburban monsters. Well, I guess he wasn't quite suburbs. But.
It's just suburbia is a playing at that community, but it very rarely, if ever, actually.
The authenticity is never there.
Yeah, it's rarely.
There's always a facade.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you said, the dad with the wonder years comes home angry and hates everybody. I bet the people who grew up in that kind of environment with that fake facade appearance, that focus on appearance, grew up to write fiction, and they just exploited their, angry drunk father who came home and had 12 beers and beat their, mom or whatever. And they just wrote that into horror. Like, you never know what's going on in the house next door.
And that is the type of horror that
know.
we consume. The reality.
Fiction's always just an exploitation of how life actually works.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why we're here.
That's what we live for.
And horror is just emotion that people don't understand yet and are trying to.
But speaking of real life versus fiction, do you want to hear about some vampire lore that's influenced modern tropes?
Please hit me with some vampire lore.
Hollywood.
And I will try to keep my inner Twilight fan quiet.
The Twilight fan. Well, feel free to pipe in. So vampire tropes. I'm only going to discuss vampire tropes that are depicted or featured in this episode specifically. There's a lot to it, entire histories and countries and lore about vampires, but we're not going to get into all that. This is not a history of the vampire episode, but we're going to expound on vampire lore and tropes as we come across vampires in our journey. But for today, let's begin with the vampire appearance, which we get as soon as we see the bronze.
And they turn and to look at our characters.
To look at us. So they are depicted as pale and gaunt, like most vampires are pale and gaunt. Originally, vampires were bloated and either ruddy, purplish, or dark in color from all the blood drinking.
Right.
This pale, gaunt appearance of most contemporary vampires is just a modernization of this thought process that vampires don't consume solids, only liquids, which would leave them thin. And if they're always thirsty for blood, that means they must not have blood of their own, leaving them entirely without color. A lot of vampire lore just comes from misunderstanding biology.
Bad science.
Bad science. For them to really learn anything about bodies, they were digging up corpses to study in science labs and such like that. So it's a whole... Early science is rough.
It is.
It's grody and gnarly, but it was necessary and essential to get where we are today. But there was a misunderstanding of decomposition and what happened to bodies once they were buried or disposed of.
And honestly, as you're saying this, makes total sense. Yeah, vampires shouldn't be pale.
No.
I'm anemic right now, right? I'm lacking in iron. I have been this whole year. Yeah. And I'm pale.
You know how this...
Vampires would have... surpluses
of blood. And the whole bloated appearance not only comes from consuming blood, but what we know about decomposition is that when when your body breaks down and you begin to decompose, gases are released in your body. They're not held in place where they were before. And they're trying to escape and your body bloats.
Yes.
So when they would open up a grave and see that you're bloated, they assume it's because you're full of blood. That you just guzzled down a whole bunch of blood. This is proof that you're a vampire.
Right.
But it's not, doesn't work like that. And also, your skin starts to turn brown if you're white. Corpse skin turns brown. It turns dark.
As do most things when they decompose.
Right. It's just this misunderstanding of just biology and science and decomposition. And that's pretty much it. Because everything they thought they knew about vampires is what they discovered when they would dig up a grave.
Right.
And what they would see there, which I will discuss more as we go. Now, their dark clothing that they wear. which is the first thing mentioned. Why are they all dressed in black? They look stupid.
I laugh as I watch this episode fully dressed in black from head to toe.
I have been made fun of for wearing black.
Me too.
Plenty
me
of times
too.
in my life, and
Same.
I don't understand why. It's always shocked me.
Me too. I'm like, it's easy.
It's easy.
That's why I like it, is because it's easy.
And it looks cool as shit.
Exactly.
Just kidding. Like when I used to wear skinny jeans, like literally there was a truck drove by with a bunch of redneck guys and they were like, could your pants be any tighter? And they
Whoa.
like sped off.
Really?
And I was like,
well, they were just hot for you.
I know. I was like, well, I mean,
That's all.
I could just take them off if you want.
That's what they were looking for.
You worried about what's underneath? All right. So dark clothing. Original vampires wore whatever they wore to their graves. And many people in the old world used to be wrapped in something called a burial shroud, which was a sheet of fabric. And some cultures still practice this today, especially Orthodox religions. Shrouds were typically made of cotton, wool, or linen, and they may be dyed a certain color, but probably not. And if they weren't, it was either white or light in color, whatever color the fabric was. But it's a lot spookier to describe a vampire's shroud as black or dark. And vampires were always said to be wandering around at night wearing black shrouds, cloaked in this darkness.
And it also makes them the other. It makes them different.
It makes them the other, makes them different. And that's just a carryover. Now we always kind of show vampires in black clothing, dark clothing.
Man.
It's wild. Next, sunlight. Now, like I said, there's a scene where these giant boxes being delivered. The delivery guy is there. His name is Mark Camacho. He's the actor. He comes back later to play Leonard Buckley in The Tale of the Shiny Red Bicycle, which is probably my all-time favorite. Are You Afraid of the Dark episode?
You've said that a few times, which personally, I don't remember it that well, so I'm very excited to watch it.
I'm excited. It's good. It's good. So this guy rings the doorbell. They don't answer. The bronze car is in the garage. They are home. The idea is that they're home, but they're not answering. And it's like, they must sleep in the daytime. And the box is being delivered. I may have said this, but the box is being delivered is reminiscent of Dracula having boxes of earth shipped to his house to London from Transylvania.
You didn't say it, but yes, that suspicion of just this thing that, is noticeable. Somebody's noticing that these giant boxes are being moved into your house.
Yeah, these massive
Somebody's going to
boxes.
take notice and watch and make assumptions.
Yeah, these are said to be refrigerators.
Right.
But of course, Emma says they're not refrigerators. I bet they're coffins. Once this montage sequence begins, where Betty Ann's narrating what's happening and time is passing,
Emma started paying close attention to the bronze. She watched them every chance she got. And the more she watched, the more she realized the new neighbors were just a little bit strange.
they didn't talk to anyone, and no one ever saw them during the day, only at night. Even their kid Lex was never seen during the day.
Important.
Yeah.
Very important.
Very
I'm
important.
just laughing because my neighbors would probably also say that I'm very strange because I never talk to anyone. I try very hard not to talk to my
Same.
neighbors if I can.
Mine
help
go
it.
out of their way
and
to
it's not
come-
because I'm rude or mean. It's because I have anxiety and if I'm not expecting an interaction, I just don't want one.
No, I'm the same way. Mine come over and talk to me with intention because they want to believe I'm not weird.
Right.
They're like, I'm going to go break the ice with this guy.
Right. They think that that's going to fix it. And really, it just makes it worse.
I'm like, yeah. And I scurry away inside.
And then you're more likely to avoid them the next
okay,
time.
bye.
You open the door, you see that they're outside, you just shut the door.
Okay, I have done that,
I have too.
but I do not run away from my neighbors when they talk to me. It's
I try
awkward.
really, really hard not to.
It's awkward. And I'm like, well, gonna go back to what I was doing. See you later. But I mean, I don't
I'm
run
busy.
away. I mean, I was doing something, but thanks. It's fine. They're all very, very kind. They're very kind.
I'm glad. I don't know about mine. I don't know because I haven't given them the opportunity to.
You should go door to door selling cookies.
That'd be a good idea. Selling cookies or
Wear a little.
am I a Girl Scout?
Wear a little Girl Scout costume.
I think that they will think there's more wrong with me.
They would literally assume you were like 13 years old.
I have gray hair.
Dye it.
Yeah, it's blue right now. So
Find out which of your neighbors is a pedophile real quick.
yeah.
So they're throwing a lot of the sunlight thing. Even later, the main indicator that these people are not vampires is that Mr. and Mrs. Braun are out in the sunlight at the end. They're like, I thought they couldn't be in the sunlight.
I mean, it threw me for a loop too, rewatching
Of course.
it. I was like,
Of
oh
course.
crap, yeah, that's right. What? They're not.
It's startling for sure. But the thing with the sunlight trope is that it's relatively new. This folklore is not ancient like a lot of the other vampire lore is. It began with the German Dracula ripoff, Nosferatu, in which the vampire Orlok is ultimately killed when the sun rises. So this trope is quite literally a work of fiction that only showed up in the last 100 years.
And then modern vampire stories have taken it and run with it.
Because it was done so well.
We've got Twilight. Granted, it didn't kill him. He just sparkled like a friggin' Christmas ornament.
Yeah.
Midnight Mass.
Midnight Mass.
Midnight Mass did it much better.
But now it's very common. And there are reasons to think this, but it has to do with what came first. You know, the chicken or the egg, the ghost or the ghost story.
But again,
it's
at the end of the day, all of these things just go back to someone doing something different than what you would do, or that you don't understand because it's not something you, in your experience, your worldview doesn't have room for it. So that's what it all goes back to at the end of the day, is just, I don't like that thing because it's different than me. And that is a very dangerous way to live. And I hope that we can all just open up those curiosity doors, as Dustin would say on Stranger Things.
Those curiosity doors, yes.
I freaking love Dustin. And
I love Dustin so much.
I feel like, curiosity does us all so much more good than just assuming someone is diseased or, worse.
Yep. Ignorance and bias goes a long way. And so does strong belief systems in religion, which I'm about to break down a little bit of. But
we do this very often.
before I get there, Dracula himself in the novel was only weakened by the sun. In the daytime, he was merely mortal. He just wasn't a vampire.
His strength came from the night.
This has roots in traditional vampire lore, that some people believe that they were human by day and vampire by night, like werewolves, very similar to werewolves with the full moon. And other lore saying that vampires are undead beings, like zombies, that rise from their graves at night to feed on the living, but ultimately would return to their graves by sunup. So this question was asked: what would happen if a vampire couldn't return to their grave? And many answers have sprung from that well. So to dip our toe in some religious influences of the vampire lore.
I love that, to do that.
Which it kind of ends up...
I do it all the time.
Yeah, it kind of comes in and ends up manipulating most of what we know to be vampire lore in the modern time.
Wait, you're saying that religion comes in and manipulates something?
It's almost...
to make you feel a certain way about something?
Yeah, I'm kind of implying...
No way.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's never happened.
This may be one of the rare instances where this is actually successful. You're right. So like you were saying, this bias, this other, this difference from yourself, the night has always been viewed as a time for wickedness. The day has always been viewed as a time for purity.
Light and dark.
Dark is bad, light is good. We still make this distinction between light and dark to this day. It's nothing new.
We went there in Fern Gully. We're going to talk about it in Labyrinth.
Yes.
In fiction.
Yeah.
In society. It's very, very prevalent.
You need light and dark both. You have to have a balance of both. It's not that one is bad. It's just that one is often viewed as bad.
Creation and destruction. It's exactly what we're saying with Fern Gully.
They can both be used for, good and evil.
Yep.
Especially when it comes to religion.
Preach. No pun intended.
But one such explanation is thanks to the association between the sun in the sky and Jesus Christ, the Son of God.
Right.
So we can laugh at that all we want and say that that's ridiculous.
SUNSON.
But it's not too far off. It's actually legitimate. The sun was viewed by many and most, if not all, ancient cultures as a god. They had names for their own sun gods.
Ra.
Exactly. That's just the main one, the Egyptian one. But if you look up sun gods of ancient cultures...
everybody had one.
And
if you don't know what the sun is, I mean, if I didn't know what the sun was, I would worship the sun. It gives life.
Absolutely. It's one of the most obvious things to look at and go, wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, because you can't look at it.
Look at it till you can't anymore. It just makes you think of Invader Zim when he stares at the sun and his eyes just dissolve in his head.
Yep.
What a show. What a cartoon. So when Christianity spread and forced all these pagan cultures to trade in their old gods for the one true God.
Colonialism.
The connection between
imperialism,
the sun and the sky and the Son of God was an easy one to make. Thus, it stands to reason that vampires would shrink away from the sun just as much as they would a crucifix.
Ah, because the sun is a god.
Which brings me to my next vampire trope. Let's discuss apotropaic magic.
Let's.
You know what this is? I feel like we've discussed this before.
You said a crucifix, so...
Right. Apotropaic magic is protective magic.
Oh, okay.
It's magic that is used to ward off evil spirits, evil influences.
So not only a crucifix, but the garlic,
Right,
etc.
exactly. And to keep away harm in general. It deflects bad luck and averts the evil eye. Some superstitious apotropaic traditions include crossing fingers and...
I do it all the time.
And...
knocking on wood.
Knocking on wood.
Nice.
Tossing salt, that sort of thing.
Oh, I do all of those things.
So we'll get more into this sort of vague superstition when we do our Friday the 13th episode of Hey Arnold.
Can't wait. Yes.
So I won't get too
Love
deep
that.
into this kind of thing, but apotropaic magic has always been used as protection against revenants, and in this instance, vampires. The crucifix. An original method of vampire prevention was to place a crucifix on the body so that the corpse would not become a vampire.
Well, I mean, you don't want the corpse of your loved one becoming a vampire, I guess. So
No,
do what you gotta
see?
do.
Go ahead and do what you gotta do. Orthodox cultures believed vampires were created when an evil spirit possessed a corpse, making it quite literally a demon possession. And a crucifix has always been used in the practice of Roman Catholic exorcism because it is said to repel demons. When Emma and Dede go to kill the vampires, toward the end, they wear crucifixes around their necks as protection. This is more D.G. McHale research because these crosses look like the traditional Irish crucifixes called partials, which were woven from sticks and straw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's reminding me of I'm seeing in my mind another crucifix woven from sticks and straw in either an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode or something from the 90s. I know that it's happened. I also have a crucifix anecdote
Hit me with this.
that I've told you.
What is it? I forget.
Well, I purchased this house in 2019, and it had, when I had looked at the pictures online and everything, there was like a crucifix above the front door, and
Yeah.
both of us have a lot of, not just superstition, but like just the way that we feel in our space is very important to us. We want the space to feel safe.
I'll briefly say that I have always had this little metal crucifix hanging on my closet door, I think, since I was about 12 years old.
Yeah, I know that crucifix.
It's still on my
in your
closet
room.
door in my room now. Yeah. Just because I like superstition and tradition. I like it.
Yeah. Well, I didn't like it very much on this night that I am speaking of, because as I bought this house, so I would come here by myself. I would bring things from my apartment. Like as I was moving in, I would come here to drop stuff off.
Yeah.
The house was still empty. I came and I was cleaning it.
Moving in at night.
Moving in at night, which I did because who the heck has time to move during the day when you work a full-time job?
When you have a full-time job.
So I was doing it by myself for the most part. And I had friends come over. You helped me paint. Thank God. I wouldn't have painted this house without you.
Your stuff and your king size mattress.
Move my
and
stuff,
I helped
my
paint your
mattress,
house.
my washer and dryer.
By yourself.
Couldn't have moved without you. But as I was doing all this, I was here alone one night, and I would get spooked because an empty house is creepy. Just straight up, it just is.
It is.
And I would get kind of creeped out when I was here by myself at night, and I hoped that wouldn't keep happening as I lived here. I was kind of nervous about that moving in. And as I was cleaning one evening, I was in the guest bathroom and I opened a drawer, and inside was a broken crucifix.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
And it was a particular, the night that I was having, I felt especially bad. I was like, this doesn't feel good. I felt bad driving down the street. It felt heavy.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just don't want to feel this way in this house. I really hope this doesn't continue. And lo and behold, I opened the drawer and there's a broken crucifix inside. I'm pretty sure I sent you a picture or called you or something.
I forgot. I just forgot about this. Yeah.
Yeah, it scared me pretty bad. But I immediately I threw it away. I picked it up and I threw it away.
Yeah.
And I said, no.
Get out of here.
Not going to do it. And I felt much better in this house since then.
Yeah. That's wild. I mean, believe what you want, but to find a broken crucifix is alarming.
It's creepy.
It's
even
creepy.
Even if you don't have deep ties to the idea of a crucifix.
Especially when you already feel like things aren't going well, and then to find potentially the object causing
the confirmation bias of,
Yeah.
this is all my fears have manifested.
Oof.
It was unsettling to say the least.
Man, that's spooky.
But it's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone now.
So crucifixes work. Broken crucifixes are like using Ouija boards, apparently.
Just seems to be a bad omen.
Bad omen. Really bad omen.
Because why would it have just been, it was laid out perfectly, like sitting straight, like up, like oriented correctly.
Yeah.
Broken in half,
And
sitting in the drawer.
If you break the crucifix, why not throw it away?
Exactly. And I'm
Why
sure the
put it
previous
in
owner
the
just forgot
drawer
about it.
to be found?
Yeah. Why did you just lay it there in the drawer? Like it bothered me for like days afterward. I was like, why would someone do that?
What happened while the house sat empty that the crucifix in the drawer just broke on its own?
Exactly.
That's scary. I'm scared. I'm officially freaked out. Let's move on from scary ass crucifixes.
I'm going to be not scared right now. We'll wait till tonight.
You said it. I'll say it. Garlic.
I love garlic.
Garlic is great. I use it in almost every dish.
Same.
The night Emma decides to sneak into the bronze basement, she's seen stapling cloves of garlic to the wall of her bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure what good that's going to do for her if she's not taking it with her, but hey, nobody asked me. I think the main reason for this is because it's reminiscent of the scene in the Dracula novel when Dr. Van Helsing is hanging garlic flowers all around Lucy's room to protect her. He rubs it along the windows and everything around the room, making the room smell like garlic, hoping to keep out the vampire that's been feeding on Lucy at night. Garlic is said to repel vampires and other evil spirits. Do you know why?
No.
No one does.
Oh, damn. I really thought you were going to tell me something that I wondered all my life.
There's no specific reason why this is part of the mythology,
Shoot.
as far as I can tell.
Because garlic is repelling in general?
I mean, yeah, kind of. That's not wrong. There are lots of good guesses to do with garlic repelling vampires. The most convincing reason I can think of is that garlic has been used medicinally for thousands of years due to its strong antimicrobial properties.
Yes.
Garlic has been used to treat many things for a very long time, including the removal of parasites.
Oh.
Which is quite literally what a vampire is.
Okay, this is canon for me.
See, this is checking out.
This is canon for me. You're building it right now.
An old European belief is that vampires were sufferers of blood disorders. So garlic, being considered a powerful antibiotic, could potentially kill a vampire because people who have certain blood disorders can't take antibiotics because it messes with your blood coagulation. So that is one such theory that might prove why garlic repels them.
I think you were sandbagging. I think you just told me the answer.
You mentioned just garlic being a repelling, pungent sort of thing. I'll get into hypersensitivity here in a second. So I don't think you're wrong about that either, but we'll get there in just a sec. First, we have to talk about killing vampires. Wooden stakes.
Yes.
Not wooden cuts of meat that resemble steaks, but wooden spikes. When I was a kid, I didn't know the difference. I was like, what?
You imagine like a steak made out of wood.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Aww.
Can only be eaten by George Washington with his wooden teeth. So Emma says they have to get the vampires before the vampires get them. So they have to sneak in, find the coffins, and drive wooden stakes through their hearts. Like she shows up with bags, and Day Day's like, what's in that? Wooden spikes. Hey, where'd she get these?
I don't know where she got all the garlic either. Honestly.
I don't know. It's expensive.
It is.
Man.
These are capitalist problems that they didn't introduce.
She went down to the wooden spike store, the monster killing store.
Yeah.
I'll take a bunch of cloves of garlic and 10 of your wooden spikes.
Silver bullets.
You have any of those partials? The Irish crucifixes?
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll take some of those too. Great. Wow. Who knew you could stop in one place? It's a one-stop shop.
One-stop shop monster repellent.
God, what a great store. Well,
it would be fun.
Be fantastic. Driving the wooden stake through a vampire's heart is Hollywood's favorite way to kill a vampire. But it's not the only way to kill a vampire. It has its roots in history and folklore, but there's a bunch of steps involved. Driving the stake through the heart is kind of just the beginning of killing a vampire.
Oh, no.
The origin of this lore has to do with original vampires being said to have been bloated in appearance, as we discussed, because of all the blood they've consumed.
Oh no, I don't like the way this is going.
And yep, you're imagining it correct. Piercing the chest cavity would be a way of deflating the bloated vampire.
It's like popping a balloon.
Yep, it's like popping a balloon. And I failed to look it up, and I don't remember. There's an old like Dracula vampire spoof movie where they get to the scene where they're going to drive the stakes into the vampire's chest. I cannot remember it. I watched it in my college horror course I took.
Oh, wow.
We watched this movie. It was a comedy. And every time they would hit the spikes, a massive, just like cannon of blood would shoot up
Gross.
onto the actors. And they had to do it over and over and over
Gross.
because the stake wasn't quite going in. But it's really, really funny. I need to find it and watch it again. It's hilarious. And different cultures say different types of wood will work. But one of the most common beliefs is that the stakes would have to be crafted from the wood of the sort of tree that Jesus was crucified on. Although there is debate as to what kind of tree that would be. I've read both aspen and dogwood, but saying it's dogwood is a pile of horseshit.
Oh,
You ever seen a dogwood tree?
yeah,
They're tiny.
they are.
Non-canon, non-biblical lore is that God shrank the dogwood tree. He cursed it after it was used to crucify Jesus.
Wow.
So it doesn't hold up.
Never heard that.
It could be an aspen, but I don't think aspen trees grew in that region of the world at the time. I have no idea.
I'm not a botanist.
Next, and one of the most important bits of vampire lore, is the invitation.
Yes.
We're safe as long as you remember one thing. A vampire can't come into someone's home unless it's been invited.
Vampires are said to require permission to enter your home. There's a lot of nuances here, like what constitutes a home? What if I live in a tent? Can it come in my tent? During the montage, when Betty Ann is narrating how strange the new neighbors are, we see Lex show up at the Toll's back door while Emma is taking out the trash. He creepily just says,
Hello. Can I come in and play?
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, nah, it's too late, bro. I gotta get the, hell out of here. And he's like, maybe some other time, and walks away.
Mm-hmm.
And our first real look at the Brauns is when Emma is sneaking over to their house looking for proof of vampirism. When the Brauns show up at the Toll's front door, Emma has warned Day not to let them in the house because vampires require permission.
Yeah.
But Miss Toll, played by Harriet Dove, invites the Brauns inside.
Well, Day first does, and then backs out of it.
He does, and then he says no, but if you ask me, that doesn't hold up. He said yes.
That's what I was thinking.
So they could have come
I
in
think
anyway.
he screwed up. I think
He screwed up big time.
She told him, "Don't invite them in, whatever you do." And then
Mm-hmm.
they come to the door, and he forgets magically and says, "Oh, sure." And then was like, "Oh no, wait, never mind." But that counts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it
That
counts.
counts. Close counts in horseshoes and hand grenades and vampire invites.
Exactly. That's part of the vampire lore too, with them influencing him like a hypnosis type thing. That is part of vampire lore, that they sort of trick you and hypnotize you and
Right.
get you to let them in.
The whole like succubus idea.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
have this power over you.
It's this evil spirit power. Yeah, this demon power, but it wasn't overt, so I didn't want to, dive into that too far.
Could be. Could be that.
But a lot of it has to do with them trying to convince you or trick you to get into your house. So they get in and they're sitting down for a visit. And, once inside, they can return whenever they want. And they tell Day that, don't worry. Now that we've been invited, we'll be back. This has its roots in the ancient belief that thresholds are supernatural barriers that act as protection. It's been said forever that a supernatural being of any nature cannot enter your home without your permission or invitation.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's a pretty common belief that the devil himself can't enter your home without your permission either.
Yeah.
That's why they always don these other appearances. They try to wear disguises, fit into society, pretend to be something or someone they're not to gain entry into your home. It's all deception.
That's why, I pretty much don't invite anybody into my house, so I think I'm safe.
Right. It's especially if you open the front door and they say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so. May I come inside?"
Oh, absolutely not.
No, for sure not.
If I don't know
Absolutely
you,
not.
there's no way in hell you're coming in my house.
Speaking of, there are a lot of, I get the little crime alerts from my Nextdoor app on my phone.
Me too.
And so many people post all the time about random people knocking or ringing their doorbell
Mm-hmm.
and asking to be let in their house.
Yep.
It's happening a lot.
Yep. I get it too.
And I'm like, are these vampires? What are
I
they?
am not. If I don't know you, and even if I do know you,
If I
I'm
look
gonna
out and don't
hesitate.
know you, I'm not even going to open the door. You're not
Same.
even going to know I'm home.
Right, same.
So, but it's spooky. I don't like it.
They're not going to get us.
No,
but
they won't get me. You
you're
can't
out
fool
there
me.
And you're a hospitable person.
You have
More
to be
so
a real,
than we are.
You have to be a real attractive lady. You have to look like Mrs. Braun.
Ugh. See, this is how you get
Hello.
Christian.
Oh, no, yeah, just be a super attractive woman. I'll probably let you in.
That's
For
why
sure.
the vampires do what they do. You're shooting the whole thing in the foot.
No, that's actually also part of vampire lore, that whatever evil spirit this is would take the appearance...
Like Ted Bundy. You're too attractive to be bad.
Yeah, it takes the appearance of an attractive woman and then seduces a man, and while the man is sleeping, she drinks his blood.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the earliest, way even before vampires were a thing.
Succubus.
It's a succubus, but it's specifically...
Female and
Let me see if I can find it real quick.
human looking.
Let's see. Okay, I just pulled it up again, and there were estries, which are female shape-shifting, blood-drinking demons. They're said to roam the night.
Wait, what'd you call it?
Estries.
Estry. Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
an
cool.
estry.
I want to be an estry.
Yeah, they roam the night looking for victims. So basically just, ancient female vampires.
Right.
And then there's one specific female demon named Impusa. She was the daughter of the goddess Hecate or Hecate and was described as a demonic bronze-footed creature. She feasted on blood by transforming into a young woman and seducing men as they slept before drinking their blood.
Damn. Badass.
So kind of like a succubus. But if one of these showed up at my front door asking to be let in my house,
you'd be goner.
done.
Goner.
Oh, no, absolutely. Come inside. Take whatever you want. Kind of like my ex-girlfriend, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
We often talk about opening doors to something, such as using Ouija boards
Mm-hmm.
and letting in something that shouldn't be here. It doesn't belong here.
Yep. Opening a portal.
Opening a portal.
Stranger Things.
Because once something is welcomed inside, it's incredibly hard, if not impossible, to make it leave. This is all a metaphor for being seduced or giving in to the temptations of evil.
Blech.
Only welcome good and holy things into your life, not sin and death, Kaylin, you idiot.
What if I like sin and death? No.
I mean, we all have to die, so it's not really a matter of liking it. Sin, though, is fun.
Yeah.
Pretty fun.
Sin is relative, as is everything.
But as kind of gross as that metaphor is, one thing I really did appreciate about this folklore, give me the warm fuzzies, it's also said that the stronger the bond and connection of those within the home, the stronger the magical barrier,
Aw.
keeping out evil.
So
Isn't that sweet?
we are totally fine. Do you know how strong our bond is? Like my bond with my cats and yours with your cats?
It's true. It's true.
We've
but
created
no,
a great barrier.
I wouldn't put it past Atlas to let in another kind of animal. He'd be like, hey, you know what? No, look, this guy's cool. Look, I checked him out. Trust me, you don't know him like I do. He's cool. And then he turns into this demon that lives in my kitchen.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, whatever. Atlas, little shithead. Shatheed. Remember that joke?
Yeah.
Next, vampire fangs.
Hey.
The most historically and biologically accurate reason for vampires to have fangs
Chompers.
is due to the fact that the gums recede after death,
Mm.
causing the teeth to appear longer than your average living person.
Wow.
If suspected of vampirism, a body would be dug up, revealing not only longer teeth than usual, but also long hair and long fingernails.
Because those keep growing after you die.
Exactly. So that's where the appearance of a vampire having long teeth, long hair, long fingernails
Wow.
all comes into play. Because anytime they thought you were a vampire, because you just died of a disease and other people are now dying of said disease,
It's your fault.
it's your fault. They dig you up to see if you have any blood on your lips or whatever, and there's a lot to finding blood on people's lips having to do with other types of diseases and decomposition. It's all part of biology, but they would find that you have a certain look. Longer hair than you died with,
Yeah.
longer fingernails.
It's
and
another
teeth.
kind of witch hunt.
It's a witch hunt. But in pop culture, however, this trope is mostly derived from the specific folklore that a vampire can shapeshift into large black dogs or wolf-like creatures, which maintains its roots in connection with the werewolf,
Wow.
as well as the most common depiction, the vampire bat,
Yes.
which drinks the blood of mammals. Count Dracula in the novel Dracula transforms into both of these creatures, a large black dog and a bat, at different times.
We have talked about black dogs in lore
Yeah.
with our Hey Arnold headless cabbie.
Oh, yeah.
And every culture seems to be afraid of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels to me like, humans in their efforts to make sense of things and therefore be less afraid kind of mishmash them all together sometimes.
So not only that, but vampirism also has a long history of association with epidemics and disease. A sudden clustering of mysterious illness was considered a sign that there was a vampire at large in your community.
Well,
Yeah.
they must be doing great today.
I think COVID was started by vampires. I mean, they said it was bats. I'm pretty sure it's vampire bats. So these diseases that are most commonly associated with vampirism are tuberculosis, syphilis, and rabies. The most significant here is rabies.
Rabies scares me to death.
Rabies is very scary. I hear there's no cure, and it inspires a fear of water. That's the Office people.
Yep.
I mean, those are...
They reference it in Stranger Things recently.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Like, rabies also, it wasn't just Old Yeller for me. It was also To Kill a Mockingbird. That's what I think really made me afraid of rabies.
The scariest thing is that, like, once you begin showing symptoms, then it really is incurable.
Yeah.
And it's horrible. I've been reading a lot about how it kills you.
Now you
It's
understand
horrible.
why it's one of my greatest fears.
Yeah. So the connection here with rabies is how it's transmitted. It's through saliva and such, but typically an animal bite of some kind, which leads to an inflammation of the brain. Some familiar symptoms, especially if anyone has read Dracula or other vampire tales, are fever, uncontrolled excitement, confusion, loss of consciousness, paralysis, anxiety, agitation, abnormal behavior, paranoia, hallucinations, and terror. And that is just scratching the surface. That's just what's relevant here.
Mm-hmm.
Some vampire-specific symptoms are hypersensitivity, including an aversion to garlic and sunlight. Mm-hmm.
Is that real?
Yeah. Because, like you were saying before, garlic is so pungent and so strong.
Right.
If you're
Okay.
hypersensitive at that point,
It's too much.
yeah, it's too much. The smell is too strong. It makes you sick. If you have a bad fever, fever, a headache, a migraine, whatever,
Oh, of course.
how
yeah.
the light hurts your head, the sunlight,
Fair. I get
it's
it.
just hypersensitivity across the board.
Yeah, okay.
Next is insomnia, or irregular sleep patterns mixed with a sensitivity to sunlight, often makes rabies victims nocturnal.
Yikes.
You just change how you live your life until it kills you.
Triggering me right now.
I know. The third and one I'm going to gloss over is just hypersexuality.
Okay.
That's relevant because vampires are often depicted as hypersexual
Hypersexual.
beings, but not in this episode, so we're not even going to go there today. And the fourth is an aggressive desire to bite others.
Yes.
So,
Yep. I understand the Venn diagram of rabies and vampires.
yep, there it is. This, in connection with the animals that carry rabies, is a good enough reason why a vampire might grow fangs, like said animals, dogs, bats, etc.
100%.
In fact, when vampire bats feed, they leave the trademark two-prong bite mark on its victim's skin, which brings me to my final trope, blood drinking.
Vomit.
Yeah, you would if you drank enough blood, for sure.
Hit.
It's said that a vampire is something that feeds on the vital essence of living creatures, which is most commonly blood. There have been stories of supernatural beings eating flesh and drinking blood found in every culture around the world for a very, very long time. Long before Jesus of Nazareth walked the earth.
I was about to bring that up.
It has always been considered innately wrong and ascribed to something dark, mysterious, evil, something to be feared and avoided at all costs. Evil spirits, monstrous creatures, wild animals. If there's one thing all humans have in common, it's fear of something that can take your life from you in a vicious way. Spilling my blood kills me, sure. But if you are something that takes bites out of me, and then you lap up my blood with your tongue like a wild beast, I'm gonna have nightmares about you.
You've seen Jennifer's Body, yes?
Actually, no.
Oh my God, you've never seen Jennifer's Body?
You'd think I would. Megan Fox, probably
Yeah, I
half
would
naked
think
the
you
whole time.
would. Are you kidding
You'd
me?
think I'd be all over that, but I haven't
Yeah,
seen
I'm
it now.
shocked. I'm genuinely
I think I was
shocked.
dating a girl who wouldn't let me see it at the time it came out, and I just never got back to it.
Okay, well, you have to watch. We have to watch Jennifer's Body.
I'm down.
Suburbia, Jennifer's Body.
Yeah, it's a great movie night. I'm
Jesus.
excited. Okay.
For reasons that you don't expect, this movie is incredibly relevant and, yes, terrifying.
Hell yeah. I'm pumped. Can't wait. So as I'm kind of touching on with Jesus and eating flesh and drinking blood, I cannot speak to the Lord's Supper, the communion of eating Jesus' flesh and drinking his blood. I cannot explain that, where that came from, and I won't even attempt to.
Okay.
You can if you want to speak to that, but I don't want to even want to touch
I
on
looked
it.
into it, and it all is some of that, like, reverence, you know?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
the idea that he was this ultimate servant offering you his very body, his very, blood. but it's a very ritualistic thing.
Yeah.
And it is not just Christianity that has rituals that are similar. But Christianity takes it very seriously. And when you really step back, I mean, I grew up, in a very, very religious household and taking the Lord's Supper every single week. And when you really back out of it for just a second and look at what you're doing, it's kind of scary.
It is, especially since the Catholic belief is that it literally turns to his blood and his flesh. But all that aside, it is this reverent thing that is taken very seriously. But what I can't explain is how the sanctity of this act of communion has evolved over time in folklore to make dark, villainous creatures like the vampire seem all the more evil, because their natural way of being, their thirst for human blood, is meant to be a sacrilegious desecration of the Lord's Supper. It's blasphemy. It's mockery.
And again, I'll just mention Midnight Mass here.
Yeah.
And I will not spoil it, but I will encourage you to go and watch Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass if any of this is of interest to you.
He really brings this to the forefront. He brings this
idea front and center. And
that's kind of part of the vampire lore too. I'm not getting into how you make a vampire, but there's that common belief that, especially in Dracula, that you don't just bite somebody and drink their blood and give them the vampire disease. They have to drink your blood in return.
It's like a sword, not communal, but mutual, like.
Yeah, it's an exchange of bodily fluid, which is where the sex comes into play.
I was about to say, which makes it sexual.
With Dracula, the diseases were tuberculosis and syphilis, because that was rampant in London at the time. So it has ties to vampirism and Dracula being the other coming in, somebody from another country coming in and raping British women, essentially.
Yeah.
Anyway, so not to get too far into that, but it's there, and that plays into all the blood lore to do with vampires. And this is exactly what we come to realize the Bronze are doing. They're going around the neighborhood, visiting their new neighbors, one house at a time, collecting their blood and stealing their life essence. We see this for the first time when we meet Mr. Mitchell, the mailman, who is wearing a bandage on his neck.
I felt so bad for him.
Me too. He's as weak as a kitten.
He's so old.
He's so old. But what a good actor, though. Like, I really believed his, delivery.
Capitalism, again.
Inflection.
He's working himself to his death.
You okay?
Yeah. I just got a touch of something. I'm as weak as a kitten. Well, the mail must go through.
Come wind or rain or dark of night. It's like an oath?
Oh, yeah, I don't know the oath, but
I'm pretty sure it didn't include vampires either way.
Probably not. And he said that the sickness he has all started after the Bronze came over one night to get acquainted. And he's wearing this large bandage on his neck that we see on the necks of a bunch of people.
People were losing their energy. It was like an epidemic going around, but no one knew what it was.
And I guess just seeing the bite mark would have been just too gruesome for kids at the time. I think that was just a choice they made.
Yeah. TJ backed out of the blood idea a good bit.
I think that's probably a good call.
Yeah.
Mr. Mitchell here is played by Johnny Keyworth. He comes back to play Gus in The Tale of the 13th Floor.
Okay.
There's this really great scene after the montage ends where Emma realizes that they're vampires. She's piecing everything together, and she has a nightmare that Mr. Braun breaks into her room at night. Her French, windows blow open, billows of smoke pouring into her room. It's very cinematic, very old Dracula vampire cinema.
It's a lot.
Classic.
Because it was callbacks to that era.
He comes in, he glides up alongside her bed, and then leans over her to bite her neck with his giant fangs hanging out of his mouth. And she wakes up, and she's convinced, oh, I have it figured out. These are vampires. All you people are vampires.
I love the Arctic Monkeys.
And of course, this is when she decides to sneak into their basement to find proof that those weren't refrigerators in those giant boxes. Those were coffins. Well, one of them at least is a refrigerator.
I was about to say. But it doesn't disprove her theory.
It doesn't disprove her theory. Okay, so she sneaks in and breaks open the lock on this refrigerator that she finds and Sidebar, if somebody has a lock on their refrigerator, it's probably full of bodies.
True.
Of body parts. So be really very careful breaking into your neighbor's refrigerators when you sneak into their basement to find out.
Also, she says when she breaks open this lock that it's just like at school.
If I can crack them at
Crack them
school.
at school?
Yeah, if I can crack them at
Crack them
school.
here.
Why is she cracking combination locks at school? What does she do in other people's lockers? Like,
I think she has a penchant for sneaking in and getting involved in things
getting
that she
nosy?
doesn't. Yeah, she's nosy. I think she probably breaks into lockers and steals her friend's stuff. And
why?
because there's a whole wide world out there and she is determined to see and know all of it.
I guess so. Curiosity.
Curiosity.
Curiosity doors. She's opening all those curiosity doors.
Yeah, she's
Whether they're locked or not.
she's quite literally a burglar.
Seems to be.
She's burgled.
She has burgled.
But this scene has stuck in my mind for a very long time. She opens the refrigerator to see that it is full of bottles of a red liquid. Blood. This visual has lived in my mind in infamy for a very long time. The cool, crisp look of the cold air whisking up out of the fridge.
The dry ice fog.
It's blood.
It's just very
Tactile.
like it makes me
we
want.
say this a lot with the show and
Yeah.
90s like Foley and sound.
It just looks so dang tasty. I don't want to be gross, but I want to drink what's in those bottles.
Probably fruit punch, so you'd be okay.
I mean, probably. And speaking of that, I loved how right about this time when we jump back to the Midnight Society for our healthy dose of exposition, they're passing around a thermos of like Kool-Aid or fruit punch or something.
Oh, yeah.
We would do the same thing as kids.
Oh, yeah.
Like if we were watching a movie that was bloody or something and we knew it was bloody, we would make like red Kool-Aid.
I did have to laugh. Is it David? One of them is holding a cup very awkwardly. And I'm pretty sure the direction was just like, make sure we can see that there's red in there.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all like holding it up like, look at this red liquid.
Yeah.
And it's sort of glossed over for the big reveal at the end, but there really is only one refrigerator in the basement. So that means there was something else in the other box. There were two boxes, right? I'm going to go ahead and spoil it for everybody listening.
I was about to say, I know it was in the other box.
Yeah. Got to just get it done here. I will begin by saying there's this other creepy door that's locked in the basement. When they go back later to kill the vampires, because she's convinced the coffins are in there, if they go back during the day, they're going to find them all asleep in their coffins and be able to murder them in their sleep. But before she can open that door, the Brauns come home and they have to leave. Her and Data have to get out.
Also, when they're first looking at that door, they're hiding under a table, and she's not even under the table, I will also say.
Right. No, they would have been caught immediately.
Yeah. What's his
Totally.
name? The dad comes down the stairs and stands next to her, and she's not under the table. And he says, he doesn't say anything, but it's just his
Just
feet,
like turn and walks away.
Just turns and walks away.
It's just, yeah, I've laughed at that multiple times while watching this episode. It's so silly. So they never get to open it. They never find their proof. And this is when they meet the Brauns outside in the daylight, and they feel all dumb. And Day-Day's like, you're a loser. And they go home believing, fully convinced that they were wrong. These are not vampires.
And also, they bolt, they leave the basement, and they are in the yard of these people. They're in their driveway or whatever. Like, they're at their house. And these people are just like, oh, hey, how's it going?
Casually.
They're not going to question why these children are in their driveway.
I mean, I would.
What you doing?
I would, but they know. I mean, they even say
They
it
know.
in like a minute.
Yeah.
They go, they were in here, sure, but it doesn't matter because tonight's the night. So they go, they open this mysterious door, and inside is a coffin. And inside the coffin is Lex Braun.
Dun, dun, dun.
He wakes up, flashes his pearly white fangs,
Thanks.
revealing that he's been the vampire all along. And the parents, Mr. and Mrs. Braun, are his good and faithful servants, helping him get all the blood he needs to survive and reign over them as their master.
This vampire is extra youthful.
Extra youthful. He got turned real young. And their joke is that no one would believe that a little boy could be a vampire. And it's like, well, maybe in the 90s, people didn't think that a kid would be a vampire. But I feel like that's clear and common now, maybe thanks to Twilight, because they were such young characters.
They were young, yeah. But also there's a hint toward it, because there's the scene earlier when the vampire family comes into their house, and Data's trying to keep them distracted because
right,
Emma's in their house. And he tries to keep them there
Mhm.
by inviting Lex to play video games. And Lex doesn't answer. And his parents are like, oh, he's too tired. Maybe another time. Well, then why the hell are you visiting your neighbors at night?
Right. Yeah. They're like, he hasn't felt well since they moved here.
Yeah.
And I think like, yeah, he's clearly the most vampire of all of them. He's so
For
pale.
sure.
He's so creepy.
Right.
Maybe it was more shocking in the 90s. I remember being shocked by some of the children in Twilight being
Yeah.
vampires.
The Volturi. Jane.
There was one younger female, I think,
Mhm.
that she meets who's super young, and she is like shocked
Bree.
at how young she
I
is.
think there's a whole book on her now or something like
Is
that.
there? I don't know.
I'm mixing it all up now, but
And then we go, like, it ends abruptly. That's it. We find
That's the
out
end of the
that
episode,
he's the
yeah.
vampire, and no one knows he's the vampire. And the episode ends. We go back to the Midnight Society, and Betty Ann says,
With
with
ghosts
ghosts and
and
ghouls,
ghouls,
there are
there
no
are
no
rules.
rules.
But a vampire's
But a
bite.
vampire- Fire's
only
bite.
comes at night.
Only
Boom.
comes
You got
at
it. Which
night.
I don't, that's wrong. There are rules
Yeah.
with ghosts and ghouls. That doesn't make any sense.
There's lots of rules.
And, you know, in theory, certain vampires could still bite you in the daytime. But hey, that's how it ends. I can't change that at all.
Nope.
Um,
We didn't make it.
I didn't make this
We
episode.
just enjoyed it.
Let's do a quick callback to the beginning of the episode when Eric first realizes that Betty Ann, it's Betty Ann's turn to tell the story, and he's like
Man,
bummed about
what's
it.
the matter? You always tell the same kind of story. It's kind of gross, but everyone always lives happily ever after. Boring.
I mean, how is that different from all of their stories
So-
aside from
Yeah, it is
Gary's?
exactly the same. It's just that's his criticism.
They all pretty much end happily ever after.
But do you think that she did this story and ended it on this abrupt note in an effort to,
Mhm.
yeah.
I do.
Mhm.
I think this is her answer. Even if she had a different ending planned, I think she changed it out of spite.
Which would make sense why it's so abrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think it checks out.
Well, I see you, DJ.
I see you,
I
DJ.
see you, Chloe.
See, that's why I bring that up, because I'm like, huh, she's doing this basically because Eric called her out for having happy endings.
I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah. And so, you know, this episode is kind of gross, but the only ones who live happily ever after are the Bronze. She leaves the conclusion totally open-ended, maybe even just to spite Eric, like I said. But either way, the vampire in this story lives on the way that all vampires are intended to, forever.
I love it.
So, my final thoughts here.
Yeah.
If they had broken into the basement closet, would they have killed Lex, you think?
No,
Would he have killed them? Well, what would have happened?
they would have all stopped and said, oh, wait, this is a kid's show. We can't do that.
No, I mean, you know, the characters.
I
not
know.
the
I
show.
was saying as the characters, just
Right,
being
right,
silly.
right.
But yeah, I mean, I guess he would have gotten them. He would have turned them, and then it would have become an army of vampire children.
I think, so this is what I think. They would have opened it. He would be still asleep because the sun wasn't down yet. The Bronze would come downstairs, catching them, keeping them in the basement until Lex wakes up, literally moments later. And they would have cornered them. He would have put his hypnosis on them, made them confused to forget the whole experience, whatever.
Yeah.
They would have taken whatever blood they wanted or would go ahead and do whatever Lex was going to do to them that night, which we have to believe he does now anyway.
Right.
So they were always going to win. I don't think they ever would have gotten a chance to kill him.
Yeah.
Ever. Because they would have hesitated. There's no way they would have done it.
No,
I don't think.
I don't think so either.
We're meant to assume that he lives and continues feeding off everyone in the neighborhood for the foreseeable future.
Until he moves on to another neighborhood.
How do we feel about this?
I mean,
Kids show.
this is how vampires operate, and this is how we are led to assume that this is how they work today in society anyway. So it's just giving kids a healthy dose of
The heebie-jeebies.
what the perceived reality is.
Yeah. I mean, I like it.
Yeah, I'm okay
I like
with
that the
it.
vampire lives on. I like that it's open-ended and scary,
I'm okay with it.
and that kids are left with this nightmarish thought that there could be vampires living among us, because if they didn't kill them in this episode, then there could be other vampires that weren't killed and could still be out here around in my neighborhood right now.
For sure. That's where it takes the mind.
I like that a lot.
I do too.
And so that brings me to the scare-o-meter,
Oh,
Tale
the scarometer.
of the night.
How would you rate this episode? How scary is this? With all that factored in.
all of that factored in, all of the lore. I very much appreciate the lore. Thanks for tying that all in for us.
Thanks. I had fun, researching it.
I was undecided when I wrote my notes, and I was like, I need to hear more before I make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going on the fly here, but I would say I would give it a 5 because it's right there in between. The abrupt ending, the idea that these are the creatures that exist, you know, the idea we were just talking about, that they could be in reality.
Yeah.
That would be enough to leave me haunted a little bit. However, to me, it's not that scary as well because we know the solution. We know how to kill vampires in general. There's a solution to this problem. There's an antidote. You know what I mean? Like it's not an open-ended issue. It is and it isn't, I guess I should say.
If you find that your neighbor is a vampire, you know how to get rid of it.
Exactly.
You know how to kill it.
And you know how to protect yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I personally wouldn't be going into their basement.
Right.
Probably wouldn't be interacting with them at all because I don't interact with my neighbors anyway.
You don't want to bring any undue attention onto yourself.
Exactly.
Like, hey, make me your next victim because I'm onto you.
Exactly. I would just be like, you live your life, I will live mine. That is, you know.
Totally.
And if I notice that you're killing people, then maybe I'll, you know, get someone else involved.
Then I'll call Dr. Van Helsing and we'll get this thing sorted out.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm
I'm
not afraid of you because I'm going to let you do your thing. If you're just drinking blood, you know,
this is
from
that
the blood
mentality,
bank or whatever.
that ambivalent, ignorant, willful ignorance. You know, you do you. I'm not going to get in the way.
There are plenty of issues on which I will stand up and stand out and speak out and yell and scream and, you know, make a fuss.
I'm just glad it's not happening to me.
But when it comes to vampires, I'll try to give people the benefit of the doubt.
The reality is that if you just let it happen because it's not happening to you, eventually they will need a new victim, and it will always come to be you.
Yeah.
Because there's only so much blood to go around. And you know what it's like to be anemic and lose all your blood?
Oh, I do. Yeah, it's funny that we're doing Nightly Neighbors while I am anemic.
I kind of wish we had done this like 3 months ago because you were right in the thick of it.
I was bleeding.
Right in the thin of it, I should say.
Yeah. I was profusely bleeding all the time, and therefore I have become...
You were lethargic. You know how it feels to have your blood drained.
I still feel that way.
Yeah.
I still have all the symptoms of anemia.
That's wild.
I'm exhausted all the time. I chew ice constantly.
It's crazy. Bad for your teeth.
It's very bad for your teeth, but I chew like crushed ice.
It's not as bad.
So it's not as bad.
Yeah, I would give this a 6.
Okay. So we're close.
I remember it really creeping me out as a kid. I mostly remember wanting to drink that blood.
That's your primary. It does not surprise me that your primary takeaway as a child would have been, man, that looked good. Because that's your primary takeaway from a lot of fiction and fictional food now.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I love the idea of it being dangerous out there, but I'm here, I'm inside, I'm safe. So I would have found this quite scary as a kid, the thought that my neighbors were vampires. I've had nightmares about vampires.
Wow.
I've had other very, very terrifying nightmares that still live with me today. And it's like different houses in my neighborhood or my parents' neighborhood, I should say, that I can go look at now and remember the nightmare I had and how it made me feel about the thing that lived in that house specifically.
And you were re-triggering that trauma every time you passed that house.
And when we go trick-or-treating now with my nephew, my sister, they go back to my parents' neighborhood. So we go trick-or-treat in the same neighborhood.
That you did when you were, that is, wow.
I did when I was a kid. I'll go walk around with them and I'll look at all the houses and get those same old creepy feelings. Like, yep, there's a werewolf in that attic. And yep, in there's the shape-shifting thing.
The stories that you told yourself.
Yeah, all this.
That you made real for yourself.
Yeah, the old little stories.
That's a great tease for our next series.
Ooh, hey, you're right.
On Labyrinth.
Shoot. Buddy, you guys get ready.
Coming to your ears very soon.
You guys get ready. I love how more and more of our episodes are overlapping and like the themes are like interconnecting.
I mean, I think a lot of it is. I think that's the beauty of this show.
This crazy dark web of fiction and life that we keep.
Yes, I love that. Ooh.
We keep weaving.
Say your right words.
Oh,
Say
the tangled webs we weave. Was that Shakespeare? I have no idea.
I don't know, but my mom used to say it all the time. Oh, the tangled webs we weave. When first we practice to deceive. That's what my mom would say.
Wow. Well, that's all I got. Thanks for listening, guys. This has been a hell of a lot of fun. I love talking about vampires. I'm not a vampire person per se, but I can really, dig into some vampire lore. I just love folklore.
You do.
Like, I'm not out there just reading vampire novels. Like, I don't do that. There's a bunch I haven't read, but man, I love the folklore. It's way too cool.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. You know what? I really love that several of these episodes, especially Are You Afraid of the Dark, several of these episodes have gone down to biology and science.
Yeah,
Because I love learning about how science has evolved and how we know so much more than we did, and the ways that ancient humans and early humans and, humans before us tried to make sense of their world with the absence, the gaping hole of the knowledge of biology and science.
Emphasis on the gape. I love that because we draw so many wrong conclusions before we ever get to the correct one. And I love that science is all about just asking questions.
Ask more questions, get more answers. And that's where we go back to the curiosity doors.
Boom.
I'm all about the curiosity.
Well, join us next time when we open the next curiosity door
Yeah.
on That's Pretty Dark Podcast.
Can't wait.
Go follow our social media pages at That's Pretty Dark Podcast.
Leave a like, leave a comment, leave a review somewhere.
Ooh, give us 5 stars. All 5.
Leave a rating.
That helps more than you'd realize.
Yep.
Follow our personal accounts.
We don't like playing the game. Trust me.
No, the game sucks, but it's necessary for what we do.
And you are too, listener. You're necessary as well. So thank you.
Yeah, we just need to use you. We're parasites. We just want to use you, steal your vital essence.
We hope that you are getting just as much out of this.
And you can give us all the blood you have in your body. Bloat us. Help us get bloated.
Bloat us.
Come bloat us up.
I don't like that at all. Where's my wooden stake when I need one?
Can't wait to pierce my chest. Cool. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, thanks
Have
so
a good
much.
one. Don't get bit.
Don't get bit, just get lit.
And also, don't go kill your neighbors because you think they're vampires.
And please forget that I said that.
No, remember, it's recorded forever. All right, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to That's Pretty Dark, written and produced by Christian Baxter Mott and Kaylin Andrews.
Our music is composed by Jonathan Simmons, and our art is provided by Paige Garland at Power Girl Illustration.
Join the collective nostalgia and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at That's Pretty Dark Podcast.
Share your experiences and let us know what shows, films, or villains still haunt you from childhood at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com. Remember, you're never really alone.
So until next time, sweet dreams, everyone.
Now that we've been invited, I promise you we'll be back.